Nnamdi, let's start with you. The president suggesting a softer touch is needed there in Minneapolis. How's that being received? Does the administration have any credibility with residents there?
Anna, in short, no. This is being met with a lot of skepticism. There is very much so a distrust on the ground here between residents that have now, for months, been facing this federal surge and the federal government. There is an idea that what they say doesn't always coincide with what they do. So on one hand, people are saying, I'll believe it when I see it. On another hand, people are saying this amounts to nothing. There's still 2,000 federal agents here. That's still more than double the local police force in the Twin Cities. So it still feels, in the words of one resident I spoke to, like an occupation is taking place. I want to play for you my conversations with protesters at the Whipple building so you can get a sense of how they reacted to the news.
We are still being occupied here in Minnesota. That is the message. The second message was that he was basically threatened protesters. And he said he's not going to leave Minnesota until the protesters basically calm down. Really? That's your strategy?
I'm a psychiatric nurse, so of course I'm big on mental health, and it's already been really hard for our community. I work too with ESL kids for tutoring, and I've got first graders crawling on my lap, terrified of ICE, scared of their parents being taken out.
So, Anna, some people seeing the withdrawal of 700 agents as a step in the right direction. But again, the goal for protesters here is to see a complete withdrawal of federal agents, immigration agents here writ large.
Rosa, you've been tracking how this surge of immigration arrests has led to a sprawling, really, transit network. People detained in one state, sent to another, often there in Texas, and then ultimately released. Explain what's going on.
Well, here's what our reporting shows, Anna. We met two different buckets of populations that are being released by the Trump administration into a shelter in Laredo. In one bucket are individuals who have recently crossed the U.S. southern border. They were arrested, detained, and then released. And in the other bucket are individuals who are arrested by ICE in the interior of the country, detained, and then released. And the Trump administration has been quietly releasing these individuals to a shelter here in Laredo, Texas. The mayor of this city tells us that he's concerned about this on multiple fronts. He's concerned about a potential increase in homelessness. He's also concerned about a potential public health crisis. As you know, there are cases of the measles inside the Dilley facility, and the mayor tells us he doesn't know that the federal government is screening individuals before they're released into this community. And the mayor is very concerned, and he's also very concerned because of the lack of coordination from the federal government with his administration. Take a listen.
Why Laredo? Did they ask the city for input or anything before they started dropping off people here?
No, regretfully not. And they wind up here. My worry is we need to have more coordination, more communication of what their plans are.
So you're not actually sure when these releases happen or how they happen. All of a sudden people appear in your city.
Yes, and we're not sure. That's the thing. We have to get more precise information so we can help out.
And Anna, if you're wondering, well, is the Trump administration becoming more humane on this migrant issue by releasing some of these migrants? The answer is no. These migrants are terrified because, in essence, they have created a pool of people who are vulnerable to rearrest. Anna?
Really eye-opening. Rosa Flores, thanks for that reporting. John, the administration claims they've ended the so-called catch-and-release practice, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. They're also trying to vastly expand detention capacity, we know, with these big warehouses in various states. If deportation is the stated goal and the border is already secured, as the administration claims, does any of this make sense?
No, I'm really surprised to hear that they're releasing recent border crossers on they were very critical of the Biden administration for this, what they called catch and release policy. I will tell you what happens is it's all about bed capacity. How many beds are available to you? And the challenge becomes, if that border starts spiking up, even at 100,000 beds, which they are now funded to have, you can run out of beds quickly. I would also note that even though Congress is giving them the money for 100,000 beds, it doesn't mean that they have 100,000 beds yet available to them. As we know, you're hearing all these stories of them trying to repurpose warehouses and signing up every local jail. It comes a point, though, where you just have a hard time at ICE identifying beds that are available to you. I would say that some of these releases, though, Anna, remember we have a lot of litigation going on. The administration's adopting these very aggressive new legal interpretations that anybody who crossed the border is ineligible for bond. They're taking the position that an immigration judge cannot order their release. Of course, that is triggering all these habeas corpus cases, which the immigrants are winning. And so some of these releases might be court ordered, but again, surprised to hear that they're releasing recent border crossers suggests to me maybe they're having some trouble with their capacity in the detention facilities.
Well, it seems like the system all around is overwhelmed. Ankush, the administration's been getting a lot of flack from judges for not following orders to release certain detainees. The ICE attorney who was asked about this and told a judge, "This job sucks." She's now been fired, according to the New York Times, which cited 3 people familiar with the matter. And she had made other comments about just how overwhelmed she was, which is a broader issue here. NBC News looked at court records and found this single attorney picked up 88 cases in less than a month. 88 cases. Ankush, is this sustainable? Can the government dig out of this backlog?
It is not sustainable. I mean, we're seeing a really real breakdown here. And, I want to be very clear. The people who are suffering most are not the lawyers who are pulling all-nighters. It's the detainees who are not getting the treatment by the legal system that they are entitled to as a result of these burdens and delays. So, no, I mean, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota has been undergoing a really, really significant disruption in recent weeks and months. Many prosecutors have left. They're down to a relatively small number of criminal prosecutors, I think less than 10 in an office that's supposed to have 50. They've been pulling in like JAG lawyers from other U.S. attorneys' offices to help fill in the gaps. It is clearly not working. This person, that lawyer you just mentioned, I believe, she came from DHS. It's clearly not working. And what it tells us is that there was a real lack of preparation and a lack of understanding on the part of the Justice Department, Pam Bondi, and the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, about what would be necessary here. So this is just one more element of a very dysfunctional initiative.
And just adding to all the legal maneuvering here, Nnamdi, a coalition of Minnesota school districts have now sued to block federal immigration enforcement in or near public schools. What are school administrators on the ground seeing?
We've spoken to several school administrators, principals, educators, parents that all say that ICE activity in or nearby these schools has created a wide culture affair that's preventing some students from coming into class. We know that remote learning is once again a thing in Minneapolis and St. Paul and Columbia Heights, where Liam Ramos, who the 5-year-old that was detained, attends school. So there has been a widespread sense that this ICE activity is impacting schools, impacting students and educators. We've also spoken to teacher union representatives that point out the fact that there is a large immigrant population within the educator force, whether that's teachers or paraprofessionals. So it's having a widespread impact. I want to play for you comments from superintendents from the school district that's behind this lawsuit, and they paint a picture to how things have been like the last couple of months. Take a listen.
We had a mother that arrived with her child who is legally in the United States, who was terrified and was followed by 2 ICE vehicles for no apparent reason. Our principal, who is always out at arrival, got yelled at, screamed at, mocked, videoed, and photoed by 4 ICE agents.
On Saturday night, our girls' soccer team forfeited a game because too many of the girls were fearful to leave their houses. Just this Monday morning, 7 ICE vehicles were loitering in our student and staff parking lots at 6 a.m.
And Anna, I will quickly mention that in Columbia Heights, at the school district where Liam Ramos attends school, the superintendent there says at his school, 23 parents have been detained. And she says that doesn't even start to include uncles and extended family members. So this absolutely is causing a disruption for students.
Yeah, and these administrators, it's hard enough to be a teacher these days, I know. Nnamdi Egwuonwu, thank you. John, this follows a similar lawsuit aimed at blocking immigration actions at houses of worship. The Trump administration had rolled back the policy that was to bar activity at sensitive locations like churches, like schools and hospitals. Explain why these rules were in place to begin with.
Oh, for the very reasons you're seeing on it. Listen, at the end of the day, you can do immigration enforcement without going to schools, without going to churches, without going to hospitals. You can get using a targeted approach. The problem here is you don't want to discourage people from seeking medical treatment. You don't want to discourage people from sending their child to school. But when you do these types of operations in those environments, that's what you do. I will say very quickly, Anna, I want to see if this keeps going on. I hear Tom Homan, every time he talks, I hear him really repudiating the tactics used by Greg Bavino and Kristi Noem, including these types of operations at schools. He says they're going to go back to a targeted approach. If that's true, I think we'll see this dialed down without court orders.
And we have seen Tom Homan talk about cooperation with local officials. MS Now also spoke to the Minneapolis police chief about what he has been hearing from federal officers. And he had some criticism of DHS actions in his city. Take a look.
A lot of them, frankly, have been disturbed by things that have been happening. There had been, at times, even confusion as to what the specific goal was. The Minneapolis police recovered almost 900 illegal guns last year. We didn't shoot or kill anyone in a year. So it was particularly outrageous to have 3 deadly force incidents in less than 3 weeks. And it's in a situation where it was basically, I told you so. Like, this was completely foreseeable, and it should have been preventable.
Krish, I wonder, when it comes to the legal fights over DHS actions, how important are these accounts from other law enforcement officials calling federal tactics into question?
I think really important. I mean, I think he put it, really well and succinctly. And someone like that is going to have credibility in their local community. And, I think he put it really quite well. I mean, this is an initiative that is imposing an extraordinary amount of trauma and hardship on the residents, and it is totally unnecessary. This just doesn't even have to happen, let alone in this way. And I've heard, even though Trump is talking about softening, whatever, the proof is going to have to be in facts. It's not clear to me how involved Trump even is versus Stephen Miller. So, I think we have to take a wait and see approach here.